Well, we're live, but I'm not going to tell you we're live. How about that? Because I'm still doing tech support. So once I'm done with the tech support, then I'm going to tell you we're live.
Sounds
We're
good.
live. Woohoo! Welcome to Leading Comments, episode number 9. How did time fly so quickly, Natasha? It
I have
seems
no
like just
idea.
yesterday we're like, we should talk on a microphone together.
Yeah, which has now turned into an actual podcast. It's so weird.
It is weird. It's odd.
Yeah.
Yet here we are. And I am super excited today because we have Karina Mickley with us. And there are two things I'm excited about for this conversation. One is Karina's awesome. And I originally met her because I was trying to create a competitive product until everybody told me, why are you doing this? Just go on Karina's uh, community. And secondly, I have not seen a community, grassroots community like this build so quickly and so passionately, kind of by mistake, I believe. And so I know community is everything these days. And listen, community, community is king, community is queen, community is whatever you want to call it. But the one who has the community wins, period. And so we're going to get into who you are, and I'm excited to learn about how to create a community because, as you know, I want to create one too. And so this is really, Natasha and I are going to get all the notes, and
Yeah.
and not, and
selfishly,
then not. Go ahead.
selfishly, I'm excited for this too because I'm working on creating a community too through this foundation, and so I'm going to take all the notes pretty much. And I'm just as excited to meet you too and connect with you today because I pretty much am realizing that like you at least know 1 or 2, 3 people that are part of your community, and I realized that this week because I was on several calls and 2 of them were part of your community. It was so amazing. So I'm excited to learn more about it.
I'm excited.
Yeah, like all roads kind of lead to Karina in one way or another. Hey, listen, can you give us? You have an extensive background with operations. I think you even started in sales, maybe. No? Okay, good.
No.
Because I was going to have to end this right away. We cannot have 3 salespeople on one call.
I did do biz dev twice to only learn that is not what I should do ever again. So
Yeah. Salespeople are crazy. They're. I can speak. I look at Natasha. She can't see me looking at her as I say that, but pretend I am. By the way, anybody who's watching this, listening live, feel free to ask questions. I am looking over here to monitor things so I can answer. Meantime, Karina, can you give us the 60-second background of your life, starting in the 19th century, moving forward, and go back a few generations, and then let's go right into Fractionals United. Like, how did that start?
Sure. So high level view, I started out as a teacher, got burned out, spent the next 2 decades in the publishing industry, moving up content operations and operations in general, had one too many reorgs and layoffs because of Amazon and digital, and fell into fractional before it was called that. Like I was freelancing, I was consulting, I was running businesses part-time, whatever you want to call it. It's now fractional COO. And I also do workflow consulting on the side. And I had a client, I started as a workflow consultant, mentioned in passing that I do fractional COO work. Next week, she started referring to me as her COO without discussion, which is awesome because I enjoyed working with her. Why not? Long story short, I ended up going full-time with her for a short time, which happens. People go in and out of fractional. They were a small business. Once I put the systems and people in place, they couldn't afford me or didn't need me. So I came back to fractional at the beginning of 2023. Oh my gosh. I was going to say 4. I'm like, no, we're in 4 now. I don't know what year we're in anymore. In the beginning of 2023, only to discover that on the one hand, fractional was growing, but it was lonelier and harder. And I understand why now. I didn't then. So I started immediately looking for my peeps, right? My people. I had joined some really great online operations communities during COVID. So I knew the power of an online community, and I wanted my fractional community. I couldn't really find it. There are some communities on the other side of paid programs or other things where like community isn't really what, community is secondary, not primary. So I had this crazy idea. Actually, it was January 7, not February 7, that I had the idea, which was, I don't know, is this the thing I do? Like, I'm usually the integrator, the executor, whatever. Not the idea.
It's not that type of podcast.
Okay, no worries. No one here is on the hit list. Just kidding. I usually am not the idea person, right? So most of the time I have an idea, it's done or whatever. So I remember looking up at my husband, is this the thing I do? I don't know, let's see. So I put up, quickly a free Slack, a landing page, messaged on LinkedIn, messaged a bunch of my other communities. By the end of that first weekend, I had more than 50 people, and everybody was like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. We're now at, I forget how many months, 16 months, and we just crossed 9,200 today. So
it's insane. That is insane.
Such growth. Yeah.
Yeah. And the community, it is such a vibrant community. There is a ton of conversation. And for me, you can get conversation overload, but with this community, there's a lot of FOMO, right? Because there's so much value in the conversation. I go in and I'm like, I missed all this stuff. I got to read it all because what if it pertains to me? And, so not only to create that community, but to create that value out of the gate. What do you think? Why are people so engaged? What did you do? What's the secret? Let me get my pencil.
That didn't happen overnight, I'm assuming. Like there's probably a lot that was nurturing involved with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took time. First of all, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, right? Like I have never run a community before. I needed it, so I built it by, I was jokingly referring to myself as the accidental founder because like I did this because I needed it, had no idea where it was going to go. It was an experiment that took off. My husband can attest, I don't do things halfway. Once I realized it was a thing, I started picking the brains of every community builder, founder, organizer I knew to try to like soak in as much information as I could. I even did an online course on community building. I think it helps. Two things helped. One, I had been part of some really great communities. So through osmosis, I learned what I liked and didn't like. And two, I think that being a leader helped as well because community really is in some weird way like leadership, right? Like the way I see community is I'm there to support and then let people connect and do the other things. Like there's a fine line. I'll explain that more later. I'm talking in circles. But what I did was once I decided that this is a thing I'm doing, I learned as much as I could. I was laser focused on one thing at a time. Originally, my focus for the first year was growth. And to me, that meant making it easy to join, easy to connect, easy, right? Easy to get value, easy to understand, just making it as seamless as possible. And everything I did was like through the lens of that, right? And even now, like there are a lot of things people float by me, and my underlying mission is that this is a place for both current and aspiring fractionals to connect, collaborate, and learn from each other. And if it helps that, I'm willing to consider. If it doesn't, I'm not. And I know yes, community is everywhere, but like I'm truly like my one focus is community. I have said no to people. I have said no to things because I'm not trying to be everything. That's what partnerships are for, right? Like I'm not trying to be a recruiter or a matchmaker. I'm happy to collaborate and partner with others. I'm not trying to be an education arm. We partner with Voyager U for that. I am focused solely on community. And in the beginning, that meant that I was literally in there. So for the first 3 to 6 months, I was doing everything. Luckily, I'm good with automation. There's a lot of systems and things on the back end making it possible. Also, I was looking for work. So this saved my sanity because I'm not the kind of person that can just sit and do nothing. But I was babysitting it. Like one of the community founders I spoke to, I will never forget that. He told me there comes a day, and every community has a different metric when you get to that, where it feels like your baby taking their first steps on their own. Because basically, like the first couple of months, I was like making sure people were engaging. I was asking questions. Like if there were 2 days without a question, I would rack my brain for something to get people to start talking. If somebody asked a question and there wasn't an answer, I would ping people to get answers. Like I was in there feeding it, planting the seeds. And then that day came where I was like super busy and I went back and I'm like, oh my God, there's all these great conversations happening without me. That day has come. My baby is walking. Oh my God.
The notifications are going off. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I have a question about the setup. So I'm part of a variety of different communities. The setup you've created, I think you and I have talked about it before, and you said it's just kind of intuitive. That's just what you do, right? But it is very different than most other communities. And I want to see if I can do a little screen share here, actually. Let's see if this works.
Sure.
I love that point on automation because it's like no surprise whatsoever that you are good at that, and that's something ingrained into the actual community. It makes sense.
One of the best automations I did for the community was only a couple of months ago, and I wish I had thought of it earlier. So I am we've got lots of channels and lots of conversations, and every channel has a purpose. And the reason is so people can opt out of channels they're not interested in. So we are, some people occasionally are annoyed, but we moderate. I moderate, my team moderates. And this was all manual because we're on a free Slack, and even the paid Slack, I don't think, has moderation as part of it. But I actually created this automation, which like, oh my God, if I had done that a year ago, how much time it would have saved. But hey, better late than never. So basically for every channel, there is a custom emoji. And if any of my team uses a custom emoji, so basically if something is put in ask for help that should be put in promote, there is a promote custom emoji. And if me or my team adds that emoji to a message, it'll automatically delete the message, message the person who wrote it explaining why it should be in promote, and give them the text of the original message so that they can easily copy and paste it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And this not only does this save so much time, but it's also, I think, neater because there isn't a lot of back and forth in the channels, with our dialogue. It's just through a Zapier bot direct to the, originator. And it's also because it's a bot, there are still people who are taking offense and whatever, but they are very, very small minority. So it's like, yeah, it was like, hallelujah. Like, I wish I would have done this a year ago, but hey.
I think you need a bot haters channel. We'll just put all the bot haters in there. So the channels for this are, there's a water cooler channel just to discuss stuff. There's channels for each type of job: human resources, sales, marketing, operations. There's a fractional jobs channel. There's a other types of jobs channel. There's shared resources, tools, hacks, discuss, ask for help, and an invite channel, which I want to get to in a second. But the there is a chicken and a channel challenge with this. The chicken channel challenge. Write that down. Let's
Oh my
write an article about that. Of all these channels, you need mass to even make it worthwhile. So when did you start segmenting things? When did you realize, all right, we've got enough people here and I need to segment the conversation? Or was this something you thought of right away?
So some of the channels were there from the beginning, like Ask for Help and Discuss and Water Cooler and probably Tools and Hacks, because those are the things that made sense. I think the functional channels probably were there from early on because it made sense that people would want to, most of the things happen in Ask for Help and Discuss. But for instance, if you're a finance person and you want to go deep on a finance thing, it makes sense to have a finance channel to do that rather than like have everyone listening in on something only finance people would find interesting. The location channels probably came later. Channel leaders is a recent addition. So I think it evolved. Like at one point we had hobby channels. Most of them have been archived because there wasn't enough traction. I think the travel one I left because there seems to be a lot of fractional nomads. So that still has some engagement. It's basically, it's a big experiment. It's still a big experiment. Like I had some idea, but there are things that work and there are things that don't. And if they don't, they go away.
Yeah. And incidentally, you decided to use Slack. And I think, let me just cut to the chase on this one. Discord's a pain in the butt. LinkedIn doesn't have the resources or the capabilities to do it. And why use Teams? I'm not even going to comment on that. Right. Like, did I miss anything on that?
No. I've stopped joining communities that are not in Slack because I don't want other platforms. Like as professionals, we live in Slack anyhow. It has, I know it inside out. I knew it could work for this. I'm in other communities that are in Slack. So it was a no-brainer for me.
Out of curiosity, I feel like there's this huge debate between having a paid or free community. Why did you lean towards the free side of it?
Mainly because, well, two reasons. One, my initial focus was on growth and I didn't want the deterrent of is it worth it or isn't it worth it? And two, because I know so many people are in transition. And even a small fee when you have no income is a deterrent. And I wanted them to be able to get the help and resources and community.
So
and I love how many conversations from people I don't even know, like new members are like, this is great. You should be charging. You'd be rich. I'm like, thank you. Yes, I thought of it, but no, thank you.
Yeah. The one thing that you do that, again, I've seen other communities where they've had maybe a lot of people, not 9,000, but even 500 that get unruly. You have been very strict about this is not right for this channel. If I'm deleting it, if you want to post it on X channel, feel free, or, making sure, like herding all the cats in a very lion tamer sort of way. And I think that's really important because you set the expectation of here's what you're allowed to do and where you're allowed to do it. And we're not going to accept doing it otherwise. Do you see that? Like, how has that impacted?
I think the majority appreciate it for the reasons stated, and also because you can choose what you care, right? And like if you're in Ask for Help, it's questions. If you're in fractional jobs, it should only be fractional jobs. If you care about other jobs, you go to jobs other. If you don't, you just leave that channel. So I would say the vast majority appreciate it. There will be a few people, there have been a few people who don't and start a whole diatribe about it. And it's lovely. The last couple of times, other members jump in and they're like, this is a free community, with all these resources. Like, stop whining. Someone said that to someone.
Oh my. Well, I think that's one of the benefits of that, is that it kind of becomes self-regulating, right?
Yeah. I'm very transparent about why I do things. Like, I'm not randomly picking on people. If you are unsure, you can ask where to post it. We have an onboarding document that has also evolved, and I keep up to date. So there are, like, if you do it by mistake, fine, no harm. You get the Autobot message now when you repost, and life goes on, and nobody needs to know. If you want to debate with me what fractional is and is not, and therefore it should be allowed to be in the fractional jobs channel, and you are wrong, okay.
I talk about the American Express brand quite a bit, because I think they've done something that very few companies have been able to do, which is maintain a kind of elite aspirational brand, but be available for everybody, right? Anybody can get the green card, but there's still a power of American Express that feels aspirational. What you did and what you're doing, I think, is somewhat a little parallel to that, right? The way you have to be invited to be in. You had to be invited by somebody who's already in the club.
Actually, you can apply. There is an application form on the site.
But you just launched that like a few days ago or a few months ago, right?
No, that was there all along. I do a lot of outreach. The application form has evolved, and it's a lot longer and it has more questions on it, but it was always there.
So the way I got into the community is same as you, I was doing some fractional work. I couldn't find a community, so I started one on LinkedIn. And the third or fourth person that joins, it was like, what the hell are you doing? There's already one that's got thousands of people. And she said, I'll invite you to it. I'm like, oh, so I got invited. I walked in the door to find that there were 4,000 people in the club already. And I'm like, ooh, this is like, what do you call the bars that you got to find? The speakeasy. This is like the fractional speakeasy. And where's the bar? I need a drink. And, and it's still kind of that in the know people, right? Know it. And I think there's something really special about that, right? Because I tell people about it all the time. And I don't care if you have a form. I'm going to say, let me get you an invite, right? Because they feel special.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know something.
Yeah. We have a please invite channel where people can easily refer others by sharing their LinkedIn and email. And yeah, that is and has been very busy. And it's nice. Like, we appreciate referrals. We do vets. It's in the beginning when it was just me, there are probably some people who got in who aren't senior leaders and shouldn't be there, but if they cause no harm, I don't care. We do define fractional as a senior leadership role, so we are vetting for that now. And if someone is referred that isn't, we explain why, or but we appreciate every referral, and we want to make it easy for people to refer. And yeah, there are times it's been interesting. There have been a couple of times where, like, it's obvious someone mentioned it at an event or something, because all of a sudden we have like 100 people want to join in one day, and I'm like, okay, what happened today? What's going on? It's a good thing, but what?
It wasn't always like that though in the beginning, right? Like, how did you get your initial 100, 200 members?
So most of those came from my network and my communities, because, like I said, I posted it on LinkedIn. I posted it to some other operations communities. And then I was doing outreach on LinkedIn. I still do outreach on LinkedIn. So yeah, it was a combination of people I know and people who had fractional in their title, which now I know doesn't necessarily mean they're fractional, which is why we're being more careful in vetting, but whatever.
So we have the there are a bunch of people we know who are trying to start communities or have started communities, trying to grow them. What advice, and if there's any tactical advice, strategic advice, what have you learned that the knowledge you can impart on everybody like me and Natasha who want to join our communities?
So a couple of things. First off, be very clear why you're doing this, who you want to be part of your community, and what you want them to get out of it, right? And that should be your gauge for everything else you do. Like that's your litmus test, right? Like, does this fit? Is this going to help move this? Is this aligned or not? And I would say like that is like number one. Like, if you're not sure why you're doing this, you're not ready to do this. Two, have a very easy, clear onboarding process, right? Let people understand what resources are available, have a new member welcome, have an onboarding doc, have the support if it has to be you at first, or have someone help you do it. But onboarding is so critical. And it also, like, be ready to evolve, right? Where you start, like, oh my gosh, the onboarding I did last year versus this year is very different. It's evolved and continues to evolve. So number 3 is pay attention to what's working or not. Allow members to give you feedback, which doesn't mean you have to do everything everyone says, right? This is where, like I was saying before, being a leader is helpful, because leaders support. They don't, like, sometimes they take advice and do what the team needs. Other times they can make the difficult calls and say, like, no, this is not for the better of the company or the community. We will not be doing this because. So I think those 3 are very important. And also just have, like, the systems in place, right? Have the right tools, have automation or AI or people support, kind of like what you would do in any business, right? It's like you need it's not, community is a different kind of business, because I joke that, like, I have 9,000 bosses, not one. But it's a fine line too. Like, yes, like, it is, in some ways they are my boss, but I also say no, right? Because they don't see the bigger picture. So it's a fine line. But all the other things, like, it should be optimal. It should, like, user experience, all of those things that apply to regular businesses we run apply to community too. It's just a little different.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are creating communities, or some that I can think of, right? They've never started a business. You hadn't started a business before, right?
Yeah, I did.
But you did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. I take that back. Let's remove that from the edit, please. So the clear purpose, easy onboarding, pay
Evolving
attention to what's... Say again?
Evolving onboarding too, making sure that it
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah. The pay attention to what works, have a good feedback loop, and put the systems in place. And probably hire Karina, who's a workflow master, to put the systems in place for you. This is awesome. Natasha, you have anything else?
No, this is really helpful. I took a bunch of notes because it's one of those things, like, as you're thinking of starting a community, and, like, what are the, like, understanding, I think, your why, that's the biggest key to, like, making sure that you'll be most successful with it, because obviously it doesn't just occur. It doesn't happen. Like, you do have to babysit, nurture it. And there's a lot of time and effort involved with it. And so you have to be very clear that this is what you want. So I appreciate all this. Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
One more thing I can add is give members a way to engage and give back, right? So in the beginning, we've had member-hosted lunch and learns pretty early on, because we're all experts in something. It wasn't pitching, it was about education, giving back. We had a crowdsourced blog from the beginning, because I didn't want to have to write something every week. And like this, it's a vehicle for others. And recently I realized I had an advisory board, but recently I realized it was time to have channel leaders. And again, these are all different ways for members to actually more actively participate. And I think it's helpful because it feels like community is about its members. And if members see members being active, it's a nice loop, right? It's a nice feedback loop where people see there's a way to give back and give of their information and knowledge and just, be part of it.
Awesome. So what do you have? What do you want to promote, and where can people find you?
So if you are a current or aspiring fractional leader and want in on the community, just go to fractionalsunited.com. There's that form. If you know anyone on here, you can, get that invite, but you can always get in through the form. Personally, I'm a fractional COO and workflow consultant. As mentioned, you can find me on karinamickley.com. Or LinkedIn, and yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Natasha, you have anything to promote this week?
Well, I'm finally starting my newsletter, so you can actually subscribe to receive my first addition to it next week. Just on my LinkedIn, of course, Natasha Walstra, and you can subscribe right there. It's finally happening, putting the pressure on.
Yay. I can't wait. And subscribe to my newsletter at thebestleadershipnewsletter.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, of course, because that's where you are listening right now, probably. Karina, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed. I joined the community last July, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you and seeing everything that you've done.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you both, and hope you have a great day.
You too.